Film Threat Podcast. I am Chris Gore, joined as always by
Anthony Ray Bench as I take a giant gulp from my coconut water.
And we are here to talk about, we're going to talk about a couple new movies today. We're going to talk about Blockers, A Quiet Place, and Anthony went on a trip to a film festival with his mom.
Yeah.
So what would you like to hit first?
I'm going to do a rundown of the San Luis Obispo Film Festival.
Yeah, I want to hear about that because I know you were super excited. Your mother has never been to a film festival.
That's correct. I got an email from John Wildman, who's in charge of a bunch of film festivals all over the place, wanting me to come down to the San Luis Obispo Film Festival. And I'm actually from San Luis Obispo. And I was like, this is going to be a great opportunity for me to go home, celebrate my birthday with my mom, you know, just kind of, it's always good to go home.
Right.
Like, I love the Central Coast. That's where my heart's at. So I went to the film festival and I saw a lot of movies, Chris. A lot of good ones.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. Well, what were the highlights?
So I have the highlights written down. The first one was actually, it was kind of interesting. Before every movie, they played a short, which was really cool. The first short I saw was Garden Party.
Okay.
It's this movie about a bunch of frogs. And
Is it animated?
Yeah, it's animated.
Okay.
Have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So it looks almost like a Pixar movie, just cute frogs like jumping all over the place, and they're eating food that's been left out. Like there's flies and just it looks like a mess, right? And you're thinking, well, some dude that threw a party and then passed out and left all this stuff out. No, it was like straight up a mob hit, and it's just like this happy-go-lucky like frogs like doing stuff, and then it like the camera pulls back and there's a bloated body in the pool. The mansion that the garden party was at was all shot up. It was really dark and really hilarious. And that was one of the only movies I saw with my mom. And I like turned over and I was like, I loved it. And she's like, I liked it until the end. So,
oh my God. So was it the style of animation? Was it, Pixar?
Very
style?
Pixar.
Pixar. Okay.
So,
yeah,
it looked like it was almost going to be a children's film.
Oh.
And then it just has a really dark ending. I thought like there were little hints, like little bullet holes and stuff like that. And the mansion almost looked like it was the mansion from Scarface. So I thought it would be interesting, like, if it was actually the mansion from Scarface, but it wasn't. So the second short I saw was called This Place, A Bird's Eye View of the Majestic Central Coast, directed by Robin Chilton. And that was a bunch of aerial shots of all the places I grew up in from a helicopter. And my God, it was gorgeous. Like it was put to like some really like sweeping music and just like, it was 10 minutes of like, I know that place. I know this place. That's where I grew up. And it was really cool.
Well, first of all, I love shorts. And they don't get enough play at festivals. It's usually in, the shorts program or the animated shorts program. So screening a short before a feature I've always enjoyed it.
I love that idea.
Yeah. I mean, it's it gives them more exposure. I think I don't know. I just happen to love some of the best films I've seen at Sundance have been shorts. So I'm happy that they're getting their play.
Yeah, the director, Robin Chilton, he's actually from the area. So a lot of the movies weren't from local filmmakers. A lot of them were just shot in the area.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was neat to know that he was actually from the area. So then I watched a documentary on the environment and how we affect it called Living in the Future's Past, which is narrated by Jeff Bridges. It was good. But watching those movies kind of makes me depressed. It's like a movie that kind of just slams your face with all the stuff that we're doing wrong as humans.
Well, it's
like, give us a solution.
It's weird. There's a slew of these films. I mean, Alan Ng just got back from the San Francisco International Film Festival where Tiffany Chobian, a new writer for Film Threat, the two of them were covering it along with Theo Sheeran. And there were like 2 environmental movies. There seemed to be a slew of, when there is a social issue that needs to be solved. I remember back in the early 2000s, I must have seen 15, please legalize pot documentaries. And now, that's actually, it must have had an effect, right? Because obviously things have changed. I mean, marijuana is now legal. I still think there's going to be some more restrictions put on it, more regulations, but the environment, I mean, this is something where it's kind of a difficult thing to watch these films because a lot of it cannot be solved. They said that there's a couple things. One, I read an article that theorized that fish in the ocean will be gone by 2048.
Which sucks because I love seafood.
But they were talking about trends that they have seen where just overfishing the ocean. There is a kind of a circle of life in the ocean that if one piece of that is disturbed, it affects all the other parts, and that's what's been happening. Lots of different parts. So you can look this up, and this is of course a few scientists' theory, but I actually have a copy of Time magazine from. Wait, I gotta go. It's on my shelf over here. I'm gonna walk over and I'm gonna get this copy of Time magazine on my shelf because. No, excuse me, it's not Time magazine. It's Newsweek magazine.
Get it right, Chris.
Get it right.
I'm not going to edit that.
Okay, so it's from July 1969, and it's about the moon age, and our NASA and our trip to the moon. So it's a copy of Newsweek, and in it is an article about how we're going to die from global warming and how it's coming. Now, this is 69, right? And this is perhaps at a period where something could be done about it. I just don't. I wonder. I wonder. First of all, what's the opposition actually to making changes? That is kind of bothers me. Only because even if let's say it is a hoax, I think that moving towards solar energy and some of these other types of fuel. I mean, I don't.
They're beneficial.
What's the downside? So, but you're right about that. How depressing is this documentary? I mean, does it? But I just find it funny that this magazine from 1969 has an article about how the world's going to end, and here we are now in 2018, right?
Yep.
That's what 49 years later, and. I don't know. It makes you think about this stuff. Like what? To this documentary.
To this film's credit, it's not all doom and gloom. It's a lot of it is kind of a look into how we infect the environment, not strictly negatively, but just all around. We're kind of there's this really cool sequence where it's done in a fast motion time where all the cars are zipping by.
Time lapse?
Yeah, time lapse.
Yeah.
That's this word. Yeah. A scientist kind of mentions that we're kind of like bees a little bit. We kind of have our own job. We go to places, we bring stuff back, all that. So that was interesting to think of. The director, Susan Kuchera, I actually interviewed her, but I don't know if the interview is going to work. We had some sound issues. But She did a really good job. It was a beautiful documentary. I mean, you can't find a better narrator than Jeff Bridges. But at the end of the day, it's hard watching these movies because you feel helpless.
Right.
You can't do.
You feel, what can I do? Yeah. I guess you know what I actually did. My girlfriend went out and got metal straws. Oh. I have two sets. I have a set of copper and silver metal straws. It comes with a special cleaner, so I don't need to buy straws anymore for drinks.
Yeah.
And I can go to a place. I can bring my straw with me, and I can just say I don't need a straw. I have my straw that I can like a utensil, right? It's just
that's a good idea.
It's one idea, but it is you do feel kind of helpless with this doom and gloom. I remember the documentary that probably depressed me the most was when I saw a documentary about Nostradamus as a senior in high school, and it talked.
I remember you saying,
and
this,
I remember it talked about the documentary talked about the man with the blue turban. And I always thought that was going to be Saddam Hussein, that this is the end of the world. It's all going to, it's going to be this never ending war in the Middle East. The good thing is that never, but it's interesting because then I started reading, I actually read Nostradamus stuff in these quatrains. You can look up Nostradamus if you want to be depressed and go down that rabbit hole. But what's interesting about it is it's sort of written in these poetic quatrains, but it's all written from the point of view of France. So everything that happens is this is what happens with from France's point of view. And France is like sort of a part of the war, but not like one of the main participants. So it's really interesting. And they say, of course, like the eagle represents the United States and the bear represents Russia. And there's a lot of America-Russia stuff at the end of this. And one of the interesting things is that in Nostradamus' book is that he predicts Hitler is off by one letter, calls Histler or something. So I don't know why I went down that rabbit hole, but
At least it wasn't Star Wars.
Well, yeah, exactly. But okay, sorry you brought that up. But it's these environmental documentaries, they are kind of, I mean, I think more than anything, they're trying to influence consumers to make different choices, and perhaps companies will realign. I mean, when you look at how, places like McDonald's have changed their menu, or a film like Super Size Me, Morgan Spurlock, I don't want to get in a whole discussion, but that film, soda sales have dropped dramatically to the point where Coke and Pepsi, those companies now sell water. They have their own, Dasani and Aquafina are the Coca-Cola, Pepsi brands for water. So soda sales continue to diminish because that kind of constant intake of sugar. So these documentaries can have a good effect. I think here's my theory is that I don't think we live long enough as humans to actually notice.
Yeah.
Like if we sat and watched a tree grow, I mean, it would take years, and then you see, oh, well, yeah. So I don't think we live long enough to notice these changes. And there was another article that showed what certain cities will look like in the year 2100, right? More than 50 years in the future. What's interesting is Miami's pretty much gone. New Orleans is gone. Other places, like there'll be flooding, but one of the most unaffected places is actually Southern California, right where we are, because you would lose the Santa Monica Pier. All of that would be gone. That beachhead would be gone, but everything else would be pretty much okay because Los Angeles is at a much higher elevation than these other places. So, yeah, those environmental documentaries are tough. I mean, I understand what they're doing, but they are kind of depressing. You know, can't they make them into more of a comedy?
I will say this about it though. Last year, I reviewed a movie for Film Threat. It was about the Arctic melting.
Oh, wow.
And it was...
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it was really boring.
Oh, I remember that. It was like, there was beautiful imagery.
Yeah.
But it looked incredibly... What is it? Is it like time lapse or...
I think I said it was like watching like a screensaver.
Oh, that's right.
That's pretty much what it was.
What was the name of that movie? You have to look it up. It was in January.
I don't know. But... I will say about living in the future's past, it was entertaining. It kept my attention. So there's that. Wow. So speaking of the Arctic, the next movie I want to talk about is Under the Arctic Sky, directed by Chris Burkard. And it stars a bunch of surfers like Sam Hammer and Steve Hawke and others. And it's these group of surfers that are going and exploring the coasts of Iceland. And it is just a really cool movie. The ending is the best part. They catch waves under the northern lights. So there's just this green glow, and it's this beautiful, like, just cinematography. But it was a surf movie. So if you're into that, you'll love it. If you're not...
Yeah, I see a bunch of those surf movies or those... What's that guy who does the ski films?
I know who you're talking about.
Warren. Yeah. He did those... I mean, they're really for hardcore people that are into skiing.
Yeah.
So, wow, you saw... So a lot of social issue... documentaries here. What was your mom's reaction to the whole festival?
She was suffering from food poisoning a majority of the time, so she wasn't having a very good time. But she liked some of the movies. One of the movies she liked was Amanda and Jack Go Glamping, starring David Arquette and Amy Acker as a couple that are having some problems. So they go to this classy resort and do glamping, which is apparently a thing. I'd never heard of it before. Are you familiar with the term?
No.
It's like basically luxury camping.
Oh no! Yes, I've heard of this.
Yeah.
I can't afford to do it. I'm not. It's not a thing that I'm really not in a bracket where I could. I mean, I've heard of staycation, which obviously you stay at a hotel that's kind of in your, close to where you live, just to not be at your house.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes when I'm in Anaheim, I've done that most recently at WonderCon.
The cast of this movie was really good, but the story was really, it had problems. One of my big issues with it is they're going through these relationship problems, and then they introduce a character who's kind of like a suave, like beefcake that Amy Acker's character is kind of, attracted to. Mm-hmm. And he's way too likable to be the douchey character that's trying to steal David Arquette's girl. And another issue I had with it was it kind of tells this story where David Arquette only wants his wife back when there's a danger of this character sleeping with his wife. So it's almost like he's treating his wife like property. Like, I don't care about my wife until somebody cares about her, and then I have to go and rescue her.
Right.
But my mom loved that. She's kind of a simpleton when it comes to films. Sorry.
Wait, does your mom listen to the podcast?
She does. I love you, Mom.
Oh, okay.
Don't take this personally.
Good. Yeah. Well, she likes a good simple story that's uplifting, right?
Yeah. But it had too many issues for me to really enjoy. I love the cast, though. The cast was really good. The next movie I want to talk about is called Reception, and it's written and directed by Joe Gillette, and it stars Joe Gillette as well, and an actress named Devin Kelly. And this movie is like an extended meet cute. It's just two characters that meet, and it's them flirting and kind of getting to know each other at a wedding reception where the main character is the best man. Mm-hmm. And it's so adorable, and it's well written. Like, the dialogue is really, really great. And both of the leads are just wonderful, and they have like just palpable chemistry together. Mm-hmm. I definitely recommend people checking this out. I think this was my favorite. That and Under the Arctic Sky. Wow.
I mean, are you doing reviews on filmthreat.com for these too?
I'm working on them.
All right, that's cool. Yeah, no, I want to read more about. Because I want to see it.
Had a rough couple of weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
yeah.
So, what else? Wow. And also, did your mom and you do anything? First of all, I want to know where she got the food poisoning. What were the details? Was it gas station nachos? Because that's happened to me. Like, have you ever gone to a gas station? You're getting gas.
Yeah.
They have those things, those hot dogs, and then they also have nachos, and you're thinking, taking a risk. Taking our gas. Do I do the gas station nachos or not?
No, you never do it.
Yeah, well,
or gas station egg salad.
I've done it. I've done it. So, so there was no way to try. She doesn't know where she got it.
Like, I think she got it before I came, because the next all
right.
I showed up, I think, on a Sunday, and then Monday we hit the ground running, and by Tuesday she wasn't feeling good.
Hot tip: a lot of people get food poisoning from food that's left out for too long or on a counter that's dirty. My whole thing is, if I'm taking leftovers from a restaurant, I have done this for years. Feel free to use this tip. I take the top of the box, I write the date and what's in it.
Who doesn't do that?
Exactly. Who doesn't do that? You put the date, and it just basically reminds me, eat this tomorrow. Don't keep it for more than 2 days. You got to be smart about that.
There's some documentary, maybe it was a Facebook video. I get them mixed up nowadays.
Yeah, well, there's so many food documentaries. Yeah. I mean, that's the other sort of scare. Yeah, the scare film is that the environment and food documentaries. And I just hope that there's some change that comes from these environmental documentaries. Not to go back to those, but I read this one theory that you could power the entire. You could get power to the entire power grid in the United States with solar panels in a 50 square mile, area. And there was a theory that if you just put these in a 50 square area, solar panels, you could power the entire grid in the United States. I just wonder, maybe we should do that.
Why not?
I don't know why we're not doing that. All right. We're not going to solve these problems on the podcast. We're just going to tell you which depressing documentaries you may or may not want to see.
So real quick, 2 movies left. John Wildman, the organizer, he took a bunch of media people out for a nice lunch. So
he used to write for Film Threat.
Yeah. He
back when Mark Bell was running Film Threat, right?
Yeah, he had a column.
Yeah, cool.
And I can't remember what the column was called, but he took us out to lunch, and we got to know each other. And then we went to the big thing that San Luis Obispo Festival is kind of known for. It's Surf Night.
Oh, wow.
And they showed a surf documentary called The Big Wave Project. and I haven't surfed since I was probably in my early 20s. And it was boring as shit. It was surf porn.
But I have heard friends who I have a friend, Jonathan Covert, who's he's an editor.
Yeah.
And we've worked together on a couple things. And John is the kind of guy that we started surfing. It's like a spiritual experience for him. Like he describes it as this thing that changed his life. And he's not the only one who's told me that. I've had other friends who have gone surfing, other people I know who have surfed and said it'll change your life. It's, but some people say that about In-N-Out, the cheeseburgers at In-N-Out or the fries. So I really think it's about, or the music of Trent Reznor and Nine Inch Nails at that kind of reaction. I really think that like a lot of things that affect people in a certain way, it's really just your personal thing. But you thought it was, you just were not enamored with this?
I will say that surfing definitely kind of puts you in a good mood, and it's almost like a meditation, just with the waves and the motion and everything like that. It's awesome. But watching somebody else do it, it's the same thing for snowboarding. I love snowboarding. I can't watch snowboard videos because I'm watching and I'm just like, I just wish I was snowboarding. It doesn't really translate to the screen for me.
Right.
And this was probably like 2.5 hours of surf porn.
Wow.
Just people catching waves. That was it. And
wait, is there any interviews, perspectives?
There's interviews, there's
stories?
people talking over it, but it's just all about surfing. It's not. They introduce female characters like in the middle of the movie, like, females trying to kind of stand shoulder to shoulder with their male counterparts and get the recognition that the males are getting. And that sequence is like 5 minutes long, and then it goes back to dudes surfing. So that was kind of frustrating. It wasn't really my thing, but it was fun being in the crowd because I was sitting next to some dude who, like, every time there was a big wave on screen, he was like, holy shit, that's awesome. I'm like, calm down, bro.
Dude,
like,
wow.
Yeah. The last movie is Chasing the Blues. This movie had a really awesome premise, kind of poorly executed. It's about two record collectors that find this record at an old lady's house that is priceless, one of a kind, but it also may or may not be haunted. And then they go to prison, and they get out of prison, and they're fighting each other over the record because John Lovitz has it. And John Lovitz is, I like John, but in this movie he kind of plays like a sleazy, like, dirtbag.
But so it's a haunted record. Well, so how does that manifest itself? Like, is it legendary that it's haunted?
It causes people to commit suicide.
So is it more horror or comedy?
It's like a dark comedy, but it's not very funny.
Oh, okay. So, well, then, see, that's what I wanted to hear.
But Steve Guttenberg is in it, and I haven't seen that guy in forever.
Yeah, but, when I see that Steve Guttenberg is in a movie, it is not going to the top of the stack. It's not. I as much as I appreciate what he has done with, I'm just not, with Cocoon and all.
3 Men and a Little Baby. Man.
3 Men and a Little. I just feel like when I see him in a movie.
Spock.
When I see him in a movie, I think to myself, did someone pursue him to be in this movie? Like, okay, but wait, this is where I'm going with this. When I see he's in a movie, I think, now, did someone pursue him? Like, for example, John Travolta, when he was cast in Pulp Fiction, he was kind of on, his career was not so great. And Tarantino said, no, I got this role. It's against type. It's something you've never done. You're going to look like you've never looked. You're going to say things and do things you've never done. People won't expect this from you. He's casting against type. And he kind of brought back John Travolta's career at the time when Pulp Fiction was made, right? And so is it one of those cases where it's just someone cast them because they could and he would do the movie?
He's in it for like 2 minutes. It's cameo.
All right, well then okay. But there are sort of a revolving group of like actors that you'll see in films and you're like, I don't know. Like Michael Madsen.
I was just going to say that.
Think Michael Madsen at once? Like Michael Madsen, I'm like, it could be good, or it could be like all the things where you just put him in the movie. So
if it's Tarantino, it's good. If it's anybody else, it's usually not.
Yeah, I mean, I love that idea of taking an actor that, I ran into like Okay, no one listening to this podcast is going to know who this is, but John Savage, who I love John Savage. Brilliant actor. He was in the movie Hair. You seen Hair?
No, I know of
Deer
it,
Hunter?
Deer Hunter, yeah.
Deer Hunter. Okay, John Savage. He was also in a movie called Inside Moves, which was directed by Richard Donner. It was the movie he made after Superman, the movie. And John Savage, I think, is a brilliant actor. I ran into him actually twice over the course of a month. He was at some film I went to see, and he was also at some after party for, I think it was AFI Fest or something. And he was there, and I ran into him, and I just like sat and just sang his praises. And I'm like, that's a guy, and he looks exactly the same as he did in some of these. And I'm like, that's a guy. Like, I don't have a script, I don't have anything, I don't have a project, but I think that he's the kind of actor that he could. If anyone listening to this podcast who is a filmmaker, an indie director, John Savage gave me his email address, his personal email. I haven't used it to this point. But if, for some reason, you have a really good script and you think John Savage is right for it, I'll give you his email address. If not, I should write one. I'm going to quit this podcast and make a fucking movie instead of talking about him all the time. That's, But, yeah, so I don't know. How do we get on that train?
We were talking about Steve Guttenberg.
Exactly. Okay, so what was your overall experience like?
I had a good time.
Were there any parties? Did you take your mom to a party?
They had a little VIP section.
Did your mom get?
My mom got to go.
Your mom. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
it was free booze, free snacks,
right.
music. That was really cool, and free wine. So we went to that, and yeah, I mean, it's always good to go home.
And do you think your mom would want to write reviews for Film Threat?
I'll ask her. She can't spell worth shit.
Well, forget that.
I feel like I'm really mean to my mom on this episode.
You are. This is like, I mean, look, Mrs. Bench, let me apologize for the conduct of your son.
Yeah.
He will receive a stern reprimand.
I'm grounded for sure.
Yeah, no kidding. So, I think it's kind of funny.
If you're in the area at the right time, I highly recommend the San Luis Obispo International Film Festival.
Yeah,
I had an awesome time. John Wildman took really good care of me.
Yeah, we got to thank you to John Wildman.
Yeah.
And Anthony's coverage will appear on the website shortly. And if you've been reading the Film Threat website recently, you'll know we were at the San Francisco International Film Festival, and a lot of coverage from that recently, which was a lot of fun. But Anthony and I saw two films that we really want to talk about. And the good thing is that we were going to talk about them where we maybe couldn't have given away spoilers, but I think now that it's been the weekend, I think it's time to do it. It's let's talk about Blockers first, and then we'll talk about A Quiet Place. Blockers, and I'm curious. So you went with your girlfriend.
Yes.
Okay. So
who had a concussion?
Who had just recently suffered from a concussion, which I think is sort of like maybe the equivalent of drinking like 6 beers while you're. So what did you guys think when you came out? And Blockers, we should say, is about, of course, Leslie Mann, John Cena, Ike Barinholtz play these parents who discover that their daughters are all going to the prom and they've made a sex pact.
Yeah.
They plan to lose their virginity. They find it because this is the thing that bothers me too. Because we've been talking about privacy and Facebook and all this, and that is sort of blown up in the zeitgeist, and it really would bother me when, like, I send a text message and the text message would appear on iMessage on every device, right? Like, if I'm having I don't necessarily want it. I mean, I turn all that stuff off. I don't send. I don't like notifications. I don't like sending private information to help them do a good job. I think that stuff is BS. So the way they find out is actually they're texting between each other, but she had her screen open and iMessage was showing the messages going back and forth between her friends. That's how the parents find out. But it's hilarious in the sense that the girls.
Was it Chris?
Okay, so we have completely different. Okay, so I happen to love the film. I'll go into my reasons after we hear why you didn't like it, and you saw it with your girlfriend. So what was her reaction?
You know what? We saw Blockers and A Quiet Place in the same night.
Okay,
we saw
let's
A Quiet
just talk
Place
about
first.
Blockers.
Yeah,
let's talk about Blockers. So what
we got out of the theater and we kept talking about A Quiet Place. Like we completely. Okay. I don't know how she feels Blockers.
So what did you think then? I mean, is this obviously it just didn't lead to discussion?
Yeah,
but also seeing 2 movies in a night. I mean,
we were both exhausted.
Yeah,
so
that was
might
probably
be
not the. Yeah, but But so what? So
My opinions on it are, I think the
butt
trailers.
chugging.
Yeah.
Butt chugging. John Cena in this movie is awesome.
Yeah.
You have to admit.
I'll agree. I think that too much was given away in the trailers.
That's always true for comedies, unfortunately.
Especially this one. Like, all the funny bits that I actually chuckled at were parts that I already saw. And like, they played the entire scene almost. It just, like, I know the payoff for what's happening.
Right.
And that really bothered me. But I loved Leslie Mann in this. I think she was the highlight.
She was definitely the highlight.
She was the emotional center of the film. But I feel like I've kind of fallen between the target audience for this film. I'm not a parent, and I'm not a teenage girl.
But you've been a teenage person.
Yes, a long time ago.
You've been a teenage American. I don't want to get into...
Yeah. I couldn't relate to the characters. I found the teenage girls a little annoying and childish. I guess I'm just an irritated curmudgeon.
You must be. Well, see, here's the thing. I think I'm actually the perfect person for this film because I have a daughter, right? She's been through the teen years. I am like, and my teen years are very vivid. I think what's interesting is like those kind of early memories, your childhood are things that imprint on you more. You remember that better than you remember, recent events from a few years ago, right?
Yeah.
Like that's just how the brain is wired. So I think both stories I loved. It's almost like two movies because the one movie is the girls want to lose their virginity, but they kind of want to do it on their own terms. And I do think that I actually wrote the review for filmthreat.com, so you can look that up.
Because you loved it. Maybe
I loved
that has a big part. I went in with high expectations.
Right. But I did.
That happens.
I loved it because I feel like it's a kind of teen sex comedy that you haven't seen. We haven't seen it. I think that the way that the sex was handled was very well done.
It has a positive message.
It's a sex positive movie, right?
Yeah.
And what's also admirable about the film is that the dates, the male counterparts to the young teen characters in the movie, they're all like good guys. They don't want to like pressure their girls to have sex. It's like it'll happen or it won't happen.
There's no douchey jock.
There's no douchey jock. There's no like. It's like the young teen males in this are actually admirable. They're portrayed in a way that like that's how you would treat your date on prom night is. You go with the flow. It's, there's no pressure
There's
involved.
no guy talk.
There's no guy
quote,
talk.
Unquote,
And it even shows like one of the parents, they're having like sort of their, sex night that gets happened upon by John Cena and Ike Barinholtz and Leslie Mann.
Played by Gary Cole.
Yeah, Gary
and
Cole
Gina Gershon.
Gary Cole and Gina Gershon, which I think both of them do full frontal in this. It's pretty incredible. But like, but they have like this healthy, they're so into each other, like after all these years, like I like that. I like that sex positive, like message that you can have like relationships that are like that. And that, that there are hangups about male insecurities with regard to female sexuality. Right.
Yeah.
So
the funny parts,
I think it handled that well.
Yeah. The parts that
female
I
director,
laughed
I think
at
that's why
was the butt chugging, the emoji talk.
Right.
And there was another one that I can't remember, but like just about 3, and they were all spoiled by the trailers. Like almost all of it. I didn't find it funny.
I like the characters. I like Ike Barinholtz, who's great on Howard Stern.
He annoyed me.
Oh, I love him. I love him.
He annoyed me.
And
I love him too, but he annoyed me.
But there's a moment at the end that just got me. Like I was just. I don't know. I think it's because, you know what? I have a daughter, so that's probably.
And I do not. I have cats.
I think it's why. Yeah, you have cats. But I think that this is why the film hit me, is I felt I was able to equally relate to both groups. So I don't know. I recommend Blockers. Anthony doesn't, and Megan got a concussion. So what can you say?
It wasn't terrible. But...
Okay. Well, onto a film that I think we both agree, and surprising, coming from John Krasinski from The Office.
Jim Halpert
directed this and stars in it, and
co-wrote it with Brian Woods and Scott Beck.
Yeah, it's. I mean, if you've seen the trailers, it pretty much tells you it all. I mean, it's a family after some post-apocalyptic event. We don't know, are they aliens? Did they come from the Earth? Who knows? It's these kind of blind, weird armored creatures that just react to sound. Yeah. And in order to survive in this world, they use sign language, and luckily this family survives because they have a young daughter who is deaf. She has a hearing aid in the film, and
that doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Well,
but
it works in a special way.
Right. Well, we
Spoilers.
don't. Yeah. But what's interesting is that the whole family knows sign language because of this, and they use subtitles. And it was interesting before seeing the film, they actually came out and made an announcement. This movie is very quiet. You know, it's recommended to get the full enjoyment of the movie that the audience also remain quiet. And it was like a pumped crowd on like a Friday night. And, which was fun, which is the best way. And it was, I mean, you could hear a pin drop in the theater. The tension was palpable. So they're trying to survive and come up with survival techniques while still trying to figure this out. I mean, they're I think in upstate New York, it seems like, and they end up settling at like a farmhouse. They finally get to a farmhouse. But in the opening scene in the movie, there's a horrific death of one of their kids, and the daughter who is deaf actually is the one that is partially responsible. So I know that could be considered. I mean, but that happens within the first like 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, and it's also heavily implied in the trailers.
Right, but also I don't think we should talk about anything in the second half. I mean, some
fair.
Early spoilers is one thing, but I don't ever like to ruin an ending of a movie unless it's something that's been out for a long time. So,
I agree.
But I think Norman Gidney said it best in his review on FilmThreat. It's not like I'm saying, like, I actually read the reviews on my own website to see what other people, I like those. But what Norman said was really fascinating. He said that sound is a character in the movie.
Yes. I have written down in my notes. I love the sound design of this.
Sound design. I mean, I hope it's remembered come Academy time, but it's a movie that like every little sound. But I do have a complaint about the film.
I will fight you, Chris.
Okay. My complaint is maintenance of a house. If you have a nail sticking up in a bad spot that might cause an accident.
Nitpicking, come on.
Like, fix it because you don't want it to happen to someone else. Fix that nail. Like, I don't know, just as a guy that like, I like to keep up with home repairs. And I feel like they weren't keeping up with the home repairs. But there are some, okay, but I want to hear, so what did you guys think, you and Megan?
Me and Megan absolutely loved it. I think it's one of my favorite movies of the year so far. I think the cast all did a great job. Yeah. I think
the kids in the cast were incredible.
Yeah. I mean, this is a movie with, let's see, like 5 characters, I think. Yeah.
Five. I mean, there's 5 characters basically in the whole movie.
I love watching their interactions. And I think John Krasinski was absolutely phenomenal. I loved the, I loved so much about it. The creature design was a little lackluster.
No, it was fine. It was like, obviously I felt like they were either from deep within the earth or they were aliens, but it's never actually explained. So are they aliens?
Yeah. If you look closely, there's articles and
they say aliens.
It doesn't say aliens, but it's heavily implied that they came from the sky.
It's implied, but that's what Did you see? Did you saw War of the Worlds, the Steven Spielberg one?
Yes.
That was a different thing. They came from underneath the ground, but they kind of transported from. Anyways, I think that like based on their design and the way they looked, they seem like, under the earth dwelling creatures like a mole.
They're kind of armored, and when they open up, their design is actually closely based on the inner workings of the ear.
Right. It's like a giant ear.
Yeah, which I thought was cool. I really, really dug this movie, but if you're in it with an audience that is rowdy, it's going to ruin it for you.
Wait, did you? Because I don't know what you have to stop going to this movie theater. Okay.
I go to several different movie theaters in the area. Like I'm kind of in the middle of like 5 different movie theaters.
Well, what's the one where, it's not like, my crowd was like, at the beginning, kind of a little, and you heard someone go, shh, which is like my favorite thing to, shh, I want to have an app that just does that. Shh.
Nowadays, I just skip and go to the manager and complain. I'm
Right.
that asshole. We sat down, and the theater was relatively empty because we got there early.
Right.
And Megan doesn't like getting kicked. She doesn't like her seat getting kicked. It doesn't bother me, but because of that, we always
Who
sit.
doesn't love getting their seat kicked?
It's a nice
I don't know what
massage for me.
her problem is.
Yeah, she's way
Was
too
someone
snooty.
kicking the seat? That's just a kid. That's a kid, right? It was a little kid.
I don't know, but because of this, we've taken to sitting in the top row back, so nobody's kicking us.
I actually love that. That's one of my
Me too.
favorite places to sit. Is the very back. You're
Yeah.
kind of like it's like sitting in the back of the plane. If you can make friends with the flight attendants and you sit in the very back of the plane and you're just kind of friendly to them, I always get free
Is that
drinks.
where the cool kids sit?
I always get free drinks. I don't know why. When I sit in the back of the plane, I'm just able to get them. But yeah, Quiet Place was phenomenal. It's
We sat next to teenagers, and the entire time there was like this anxiety building up. Like, I don't want them to talk. I don't want them to.
And so what happened?
They started acting up in the beginning of the movie, and then some nice good Samaritan told them to shush it.
Yeah, shh.
And to their credit, they did. And
Right,
the
that's
movie, I mean, you
Well,
can
the
hear
movie-
a needle drop, but what I'm saying
Yeah.
is, if you're in a theater where somebody is talking, like, this is not the movie to talk to.
You would hear, or the monster should come get you. Is
Yeah.
what should happen. That's what should. All the people who talked during this movie should be brutally, decimated by one of these creatures.
Even though the teenagers didn't talk, there was still that anxiety. Like, I don't want anybody ruining this experience because the movie does have excellent sound design, and you have to listen.
Right.
I think the perfect way to watch this movie is at home with headphones, just so you don't take the chance of
that's a
somebody
great
fucking
idea.
it up for you. Because
That's a great
this is
idea.
not the movie you want fucked up for you.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I loved it.
Yeah, it's okay. So we split on blockers, but we're in agreement on A Quiet Place.
Absolutely.
I'm curious because it seems like there could be sequels to this. It sets up, it does quite a bit of world building, and you really only get to the good part at the very end. I kind of feel like, oh, this is it starting. We're finally learning something, So I don't know if there would be a sequel. I could see them doing a low budget sequel. And you know who should be in the low budget sequel? I know exactly.
Rainn Wilson?
Steve Guttenberg. I think Steve Guttenberg could actually be in the sequel that available on VOD and DirecTV Premiere. It could be one of those. But I
Early on, there was a rumor that it was a Cloverfield movie.
yeah. I mean,
I think it would have fit.
it could. I don't care about Cloverfield anymore. It's just a brand that is.
Agreed.
It's a brand to promote. I don't know. I just
J.J. Abrams.
make it a Black Mirror episode. Whatever. It's
Fair enough.
But I'm curious. One, will there be sequels to it?
I'm
Will there be
sure.
follow-ups? And two, where does John Krasinski go from here? Like, is he going to be the horror director? Because, I mean, while there were elements of horror, what I think Krasinski, what he brought to this was the human element.
I agree.
Those relationships, the father-daughter relationship, the father-son relationship, the that family unit, and all of those it was handled so well that I don't know that I would say Krasinski is necessarily the horror director, but he certainly is someone who's able to handle, just people talking in a room and it being interesting.
Yeah.
And that's also hard enough. So I'm really curious to see what he does next. I mean, he could be one of those genre-defying directors,
I think that's going to be the case. I don't think this is a strict horror movie, just like you said. I think it's more about building up a tension. Like, that somebody's going to drop something. That somebody's going to make a noise. That, they're going to put themselves in danger, and you're just waiting for it. And there's so much buildup. There's so many little hints that they throw that things are going to go off or things are going to make noises. And I think, like you said, the human dynamic between the characters, it doesn't make it a horror movie.
And it's not, what I like also is it doesn't devolve into post-apocalypse Walking Dead types of stuff where
Thank God.
Groups of people fighting amongst each other. It's really the struggle of this one family against these horrific creatures. So,
Nobody else is in the movie, just this family.
well, highly recommend it. It's one of those that, like, I would actually like to see it again.
I would
thought it was
too,
good.
yeah.
So we also need to talk about that the Film Threat podcast it's been on over a year now. I mean, like,
We started in February 2017.
Yeah. I think the first episode came out maybe even just before that. In January, was it? Like there was like look, it's been going now over a year. It's been kind of a sandbox for Anthony and I to play with different types of formats. We've interviewed filmmakers. We've gone to festivals. We've, recorded podcasts in the car. We've recorded podcasts at the ArcLight movie theater and other movie theaters.
Conventions.
At conventions, we've done live shows. We've used the Film Threat podcast as really a sandbox to feature the writers of Film Threat. Including
Matthew Passantino,
including like Theo Shear, Norman Gidney's been on, Dante James, Alan Ng, like other people who contribute to Film Threat, and that will continue. There will be more people, contributing to this, but it's going to change because we got.
A little backstory. So last year, I would say around September, I developed this really bad cough. And no matter what I did, I just could not stop coughing. So I went to my primary care doctor, and they gave me a chest x-ray. And long story short, I have something growing in my left lung. Now, there's not an immediate, I guess, there's not an immediate, like, I'm not going to die. Like, that's kind of the thing that, sorry, it's hard for me to talk about. It really is, because it's been a stressful situation. There's nothing immediate to worry about. We're still trying to figure out what it is. It's caused me a lot of stress. I've dropped the ball on a couple of things, Film Threat related. And me and Chris basically decided that my health comes first, and I got to focus on that and get better and figure out what this thing is, what we need to do about it. And I'm going to kind of step away from things, be a little less hands-on with the podcast. And but you're going to be involved. This is like,
and what we'll do is, you're going to be a part of it. Mm-hmm. And we're planning on, I don't know, I shouldn't even say launching a new podcast. It's a new podcast that Anthony was going to do with a friend. I don't know, maybe too early to announce. I feel like that should come later, but it's a really cool concept for a podcast that'll be part of the growing network.
Yeah,
but
and I want to focus more on writing.
Yeah.
The podcast is a lot of fun, but it's going places that I just don't have the energy and
Well, I said you have to take care of your health, because I've noticed you've changed. Like, you're out of breath. Like it's actually
breathing is really hard.
Yeah, it's pushed on your lungs. Like I feel like, and you were already like struggling with having to deal with wanting to lose weight and get running and getting your health together. And I'm like, you have to take time off. Get whatever this thing is, whatever this growth is. And I think the first thing I said was, could it write reviews for Film Threat? Which I think was the first joke I sent you.
I wanted to name it Chris.
You could name it Chris, but cut it out. I hope they let you keep it. And, well, whatever this is, it's a growth, but it's benign. It's not cancerous.
I need to have a biopsy to make sure.
Right.
And right now, I guess the schedule of events that's going on is I just took a sleeping test to see how it affects my breathing while I sleep. Mm-hmm. Next is a pulmonary function test. I'm not sure what goes into a PFT, but that's what's next on my list. And then it'll be a biopsy, because I already took a CT scan. So it's just a lot of stress and a lot of stuff on my mind.
I know.
A lot of stuff on my body.
Yeah, you like just... I feel like that just has to come first. And I appreciate, you'll still be I feel you're going to be on. It's like we're saying, I don't want to say goodbye because you're not going away. You're just, you have to take care of this. Like I remember just being mad. You told me something that the hospital said, and I was fucking pissed. I was furious. I was like, this is because I've dealt with hospitals before, and I had a close friend of mine lose his mother because he checked her in a hospital, and there were simple, like, they didn't have a particular machine, but they couldn't transfer to this other hospital. And my friend offered to buy the machine and pay for it and have one sent over. And I have had heard too many horror stories of people who've been pushed around by our just crazy health industry in the U.S. And I just want to see you get this handled so you have peace of mind, so that you can breathe comfortably, so you can go out and run and actually get your health back, and then be a part of it. Because I know that you struggled a lot when we were at Sundance. I mean, that was that was fast paced. It's rough. There's a lot of, you're walking. I mean, that is a physical endurance test, those festivals.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I ran a short distance in the cold and the thin air, and I remember I burst in because we wanted to record an episode before Theo left, and I come in out of breath, and you thought I was yelling at you, and I was wanting to fight.
I was
having
oh, I didn't know.
No,
but it was, we've
yeah.
talked it out, but
Yeah.
look, I just think that your health is more important than a podcast. You're not going away. You're going to take a break. We're going to have revolving guests on. Sometimes it'll just be me. It might be Dante or whoever. I'll get other people to be on the show. We are going to be splitting the Film Threat podcast into a series of other podcasts. We've talked about a podcast network for a while. Well, guess what? We're going to be doing it. We'll be doing podcasts that will be focused on interviews. We're going to be spinning off our festival coverage into another podcast about festivals. And the Film Threat podcast will always be kind of, our sandbox of the writers of Film Threat talking about stuff. There have been episodes of this show that I have not been on, and yourself as well. So we hope that those who've supported us through the Kickstarter, supported us by, listening to us and retweeting or downloading or getting their friends to subscribe. We hope you still stick with us. And I hope that you'll send good thoughts Anthony's way, positive thoughts. And I'll keep you up to date on whatever information you're willing to share. And, and what's weird is that, here's what's weird for me. And you actually made a joke about it. I did this is the second podcast where my original podcast, Pod Crash, which I did for 2 years, which I don't even know if it's still around, but I mean, on the internet, I'm sure you can find it somewhere. And so Pod Crash I did, and I did it with my producer there, Sean, who got cancer in the middle of doing the podcast.
Yep.
And what was the joke that you sent me? It was just it was.
I said, if this is cancer, which, it's not cancer until I find out it's cancer. That's kind of my attitude about it. But I said, if this is cancer, you're the problem, Chris.
Yeah, I think I'm giving podcast producers cancer. So yeah,
second time in a row.
Yeah, I mean,
and me and Sean had a really good talk about it too. Sean's given me his best wishes, and I appreciate that. But right now, that's all I want. Please don't do a GoFundMe. Not that anybody would, but
well, first of all, I respect that you don't want to do a GoFundMe. You're just going to take care of it.
I don't know what this is. I want to know what it is before I start panicking. I mean, it's on my mind constantly. It's stressing me out, but I'm not doom and gloom. I'm not telling people oh, I'm dying.
You're not
it's cancer. It's I don't know.
You're not like John Hurt at the beginning of the first Alien. Some sort of dream about smothering. And then he goes and has breakfast, and then his chest hugger comes out of his chest burster comes out, and so it's not a chest it's not an alien. There wasn't a face hugger on your face recently.
No.
Which I can imagine a doctor if you had a face hugger on your face in the last 72 hours. So, but yeah, no, I think
I want that doctor, a doctor who's nerdy and makes references.
But obviously, I'll share information with our audience. I appreciate you guys sticking with us. The Film Threat podcast will continue. The Film Threat website will continue. We've rolled out also this week. So it's funny. Just as I'm telling people you're having health problems, I'm working it into a plug. This week, we're rolling out our videos. We have a Film Threat. If you look on YouTube, I think it's youtube.com/Film Threat or users/ whatever. Just look up Film Threat on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you'll see we're rolling out a number of shows. We're just starting with Hollywood's B.O., which is about the box office, breaking news, and a show called The Week in Reviews. And then we're also going to be doing, that's with Theo Shear. And then we're also doing a show with James Darling called Redux, which is about people who recut and re-edit movies. So I'm pretty excited about that one. That one rolls out at the end of April. So you're going to see more and more shows. And there's a lot of these shows where people like on YouTube get together and just talk about movies all the time. We're not going to be doing that. We're going to be doing shows. So we hope that you'll check out our YouTube channel too as we expand all of our efforts. And hopefully if you
I have
want
something I want to share.
What do you want to share? What are you going to share?
It's exciting news. So for the last couple of weeks, I've been really, really busy, and I haven't got a chance to subscribe to the Film Threat channel. I just did, and I'm number 100. You guys have 100
number
subscribers.
100.
Yeah, I'm number 100.
You're number 100. Okay, so
that's a special benchmark.
We got to get to 1,000.
Yeah,
exactly. It is a benchmark. Oh my God, that's your podcast name, Benchmark. So I'll keep you up to date with Anthony. The Film Threat podcast will continue, and you're going to hear, because we've actually recorded episodes that we haven't run yet. Right, you've appeared on a few episodes that we're just waiting in the wings to run when it's time.
We're recording one tonight,
and we're going to record. So Anthony's just taking a break to focus on health. He'll be back when his health is 100%, and we wish him luck. And I love him. He's a great friend. So
thank you, Chris. I love you too.
I was talking to some people, just talking about like how loyal you have been through the years to do. Like Anthony will do anything. He will do, and he's just like, do you want me? He's always
Don't tell people that. They'll hit me.
Well, no, but what I mean is, I don't mean sexually. Okay, that's a whole other.
I didn't mean that either.
Exactly.
But thanks for bringing that up,
I don't want
too.
people getting the wrong idea. I'm saying you are like, you're Johnny on the spot, always on time. You're like, which to me is like it's a pet peeve of mine. You're like, we'll do whatever it is. But the one thing I do, and I'm glad you said writing, because I feel like, and this is like with Film Threat, I get caught up in doing things. A lot of things I really don't, are not the fun part of doing it. I don't get to write as much as I used to. I like to write, and I feel like getting back to being creative and doing that kind of thing is just much more appealing. So I think doing that, I feel like, because there was a creative side project you were working on, something that didn't pan out. I don't want to say what it is, but like you came up with an idea that I thought was great, and it was totally not what I thought it was going to be. It was better, and I feel like focusing on creative stuff for that, I think, is something that maybe you'll have time as you're sitting in bed.
I have no idea what you're talking about. You'll have to tell me later.
I'll tell you after the podcast. But we're off to a screening, and let's get out of here.
Goodbye, good luck, and may the good Lord take a liking to you. Happy trail.